Call this meeting the North Adams City Council's order for August 28th. This meeting is being recorded. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Bona.
Here.
Buddington.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
Harpin.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
LaForest.
Here.
Lamb.
Here.
Moran.
Here.
Wilkinson.
Here.
We have 9 present.
We have 9 present. We have quorum. Please stand for a moment of silence. And the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from August 14th.
Motion. Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose?
Abstention.
And 1 abstention. Yep, minutes approved. All right. Paper number 11,682, communication submitted by Councilor Harpin requesting consideration of a stipend for the retirement board members. This was in City Council June 26. It was voted to postpone to a meeting of August 28th. Councilor Harpin, what do you propose at this point?
I am proposing to postpone this until the next meeting, which is September 11th.
Okay, so we have a motion to postpone to September 11th.
Second.
We have a second. Do we have any discussion? Yes, Councilor Wilkinson.
Why are we postponing?
I sent out a letter. I'm not sure
I
if
did
you got
receive it. I did
Okay, you
receive
did
it.
see it. Okay. So I actually called PARAC, and I spoke to a gentleman there, and I got some information as to how this actually flows through the retirement system and our appropriation. And I feel comfortable with it, but it was a last-minute conversation, and I would rather get some detailed information and some be able to explain it to the council better. So,
Thank you. Thank you for your
You're
input.
welcome.
Thank you.
I'd also like to make it clear what is currently in front of us is just a communication. So if something was actually to come forward for us to vote on, it would need to most likely be an order. And so that process needs to be figured out because usually orders come from the mayor's office, but this is a unique one. So we'll have to, that may have to be discussed and figured out by that meeting or after that meeting, but that is definitely, so tonight if we were to accept this, it would only be accepting the communication, not actually voting in favor of it, so, okay. Any other discussion? Discussion from the audience? Not hearing any. We have a motion to postpone to September, what was it?
September 11th.
September 11th.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? No abstentions, motion passes. If anyone here is for the retirement board, that was it. Paper number 11,683-1, Mayor's Communication number 57 regarding update on RFPs for sale of city-owned property. In City Council, August, oh, that's today. Without objection, file the communication. Mayor.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is, as a setup to the next 2 papers, is walk the council through a number of issues related to the RFP process. And I'll begin with the legal framework for this, which the disposal of the land falls under Chapter 30B of Mass General Law. There are several steps to this. It begins with a declaration of the properties no longer being needed for municipal purposes and available for disposition. That's the mechanism by which the council approved these orders back in February 2017. Additional steps in the process include determining the value for the property, which is the assessment has been what we've used in the past, and developing the RFP, which was done by the procurement officer, including a property description, evaluation criteria, and then issuing and reviewing the RFPs against the criteria. So this has been developed by our 2 trained procurement officers following state procurement guidelines. And once a recommendation is made, if a bid is at or below the value determined, then the negotiation of the purchase and sale goes directly to the administration. However, if it is below the determined value, it goes back to the council for consideration, including a review of bids, which is what we'll be talking about this evening. So again, this process for the properties that we're talking about this evening began in 2017, the February 14th meeting, to be specific. The previous administration identified 5 parcels. That was the DPW building, the salt shed, Sullivan School, Notre Dame Church and School, and Windsor Mill, and authorized those for disposition. Later in the year, in August, the council authorized the disposition of the Pownell land. I want to speak to 2 early successes. In July, the council approved the Windsor Mill bid, and we're in the process of working with the purchaser to close that. And then in October, the council accepted the proposal to sell the city yard to Cumberland Farms for a price of $575,000 with some contingencies based on environmental cleanup. The company's presenting their site plan and special permit application to the planning board in September on that one, and we expect that we would move forward on a closing at that point. So that takes us to the 4 parcels in question tonight. The results of those last year were unsuccessful. The salt shed received 1 bidder, and the council opted not to accept that bid at the $50,000 amount. Notre Dame issued, the city issued the RFP in March. There were no bidders for that, and that was subsequent to the city and the state investing nearly $100,000 in the building in early 2017 in repairs. That was for brick and stone masonry, repairing damaged gutters and downspouts. So the city paid about I can tell you not about, exactly $49,613.70 as their share of that repair project. The Sullivan School, again, March 2017, the RFP was issued, and there was no bid. The Pownell land went out to bid for the first time in November, and there were no bidders. So we worked with the administration. I worked with the chief procurement officer to update the RFPs, which were reviewed for form by the real estate attorney. The council saw those at the July 10th meeting, and the RFPs were published and issued on July 11th for Ashland Street, Notre Dame, Pownell, and Sullivan, with a closing date of August 13. The RFP established the following evaluation criteria for the bid: price, proposed use, neighborhood impact, and compatibility with the Vision 2030 comprehensive plan. And those bids were reviewed against these criteria by a committee that included the assessor, the chief procurement officer, the director of community development, and myself. So the results of those were as follows. We received no bid for Sullivan School. We received 1 bid for the Pownell land, which the review committee unanimously rejected on price. We felt it was not sufficient. There were 3 bids for the Ashland Street project. We accepted the middle bid. It was a slightly lower price than the top bid, but the evaluators felt it really was the best proposed use, and when we get to that order, I can say more about that. And then the Notre Dame bid, and again, I'll say more there, but I will say this was the hardest of the bids to evaluate. 3 bids with very different purposes, very different uses, reviewed against those criteria. 1 proposal clearly wins on price. That we really did give a lot of thought to proposed use and neighborhood impact, and we did take additional time with that one to get to the point. In terms of process, I want to make clear that I have a prior relationship with the recommended bidder. One of the principals of that entity was a volunteer on my mayoral campaign. To that end, I sought advice from the State Ethics Commission and have filed a disclosure 23B as needed. And in that form, it asks for a determination of why I believe there is a low risk of undue favor or improper influence, and I offer several reasons to the council. The first being that this process is governed by procurement law, so the obligation is to look at the most advantageous proposal against the criteria. The proposals were reviewed by a committee which voted unanimously in this case. The acceptance of the proposals does, at this point, go to the council, so there's another check and balance. And then the project, as it goes forward, will follow all planning, zoning, permitting, and historic preservation requirements. So with that, as we go forward, the next steps on this would be, if approved, I would negotiate the purchase and sale with the winning bidder. That'd be a standard contract that would be we would engage counsel, the city solicitor, and then the bidder would engage their attorney. And we would include very clear timelines, so these are not open-ended processes and these won't drag on unreasonably. So that would be the background and context for the next two papers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to paper number 11,683-1A, an order authorizing the mayor to, what's that? Did I do the wrong one? I skipped one. I apologize. This one? Okay. A mayor's communication number 58 regarding, paper number 11,683-1A, mayor's communication number 58 regarding the sale of Notre Dame Church and School. Without objection, file the communication and move to the order. Okay. Now, paper number 11,683-1A, an order authorizing the mayor to negotiate the sale of Notre Dame Church and School to the Square Office LLC in the amount of $253,000. We need a motion to adopt the order.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Second, Wilkinson and Hopkins. And I'm sure we're going to have some discussion. Discussion from counselors? First? Yes, Counselor Buddington.
Well, first off, it seems like an appropriate use, and we know that we need more hotel space in town. My only concern is just that it seems like it would be a traffic generator right across from a school, and I know we have a planning process to deal with this, but I just like an assurance that this has been considered. If I may request that from the mayor.
No, we did consider that the neighborhood impact, and that's something that we'll have to, as this moves forward, be very carefully considered. It will have to go through the planning and zoning process, and it will have to be absolutely aligned with the needs of the neighborhood and the needs of being in what would end up then being a mixed-use neighborhood with a school in it.
Counselor Hopkins.
Just a couple quick questions for the mayor through the chair.
Sure, thank you.
We're getting this because, to say yes or no to, because the offer is below the assessed value,
Because
correct?
it's below assessed.
If it had been above the assessed value, it would be up to your office to negotiate, and it would go to the planning process, correct? And if it was a private sale, we wouldn't be sitting here, and it would go straight to the planning process, correct?
I believe that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
Those are my only questions.
Sure, thank you. Other counselors? Mayor, is this, go ahead, Counselor Lamb.
Through the chair to the mayor, based on the amount of money that has been invested in the building for the historic purposes, because the preservation component, that was all disclosed when the RFP went out, correct?
I believe
for calls for,
I
okay.
have a copy, but yeah, no, I
Okay.
think that's.
I just know that that could be seen as a impediment to development if it's not clearly there. Okay, thank you.
And I believe in the response, in the proposal, the bidder also acknowledges the investigation and the resolution of that.
Yeah.
Mayor, is this sale, the final sale contingent on the planning process? So or will the purchase and sales be sold before, or if the planning board does not accept this, will they by then have owned the property?
So we haven't started that negotiation. So again, that would be some of the considerations about timeline, benchmark. So again, let's use the Cumberland Farms as an example. The closing was contingent upon some benchmarks related to environmental cleanup. I would imagine we would put mutually, both sides would put some conditions into that, but we haven't begun that, because until there's a winning bid, it's not possible to do that.
Thank you. Counselor Lamb.
And that was actually just something I was going to note, is that we're voting to permit the mayor to enter those negotiations.
Right.
With past ones, it's been the similar thing where we tend to have a lot of questions that aren't necessarily addressed yet just because they haven't been negotiated into the bill of sale or anything like
Correct.
that. So.
This is not the final vote for everything. Counselor Cohen.
I definitely did my homework with this because I'm new to the process, and so I spent a lot of time looking at these RFPs and trying to understand directly what how the impact this would have on our city, and I feel as though we truly do need something like this. What I'm concerned about is truly the planning versus the chances that we're financially going to be impacted by this and that it's going to go through, whether, whatever the process would be. So if we do decide that, we want to go through with the square office and for the proposed price of $253,000 and it's held up for a year with the planning and with, it's very possible the neighbors may tie this up, in the process. We're tripling the density with commercial use with this property. So, those definitely were some concerns of not only the people that live around there, but with, I know myself with the school. I know that I had thought about the safety of the school and with traffic coming in and out. But, I'm not sure if this space is exactly the space that I could foresee something like this being erected in the city. I have concerns about water pressure in that area, whether or not, there's some corrosion already that they're going to find, and that's going to stop the sale. Every dollar that they're going to be putting into this is going to continue to add to this proposed price, whereas, we're not discussing this at the moment, but with some of the other RFPs, I feel as though some of the money that they're going to be putting into it will be directly to the restoration and with putting money into the property. I would just like to look at the fact that this may not be a 100% sale, whereas some of the other, the two other RFPs are more, I guess, promising than this possibly could be. So, I
Point
think
of clarity,
we need,
I just don't want to say what is currently in front of us is that RFP. So we don't have the decision to change the bid.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's either going to be a yes or no on the bid in front of us, and if we bid no, it doesn't go to the other bidders. It would probably have to start a whole new process from scratch. So I just, I know there may be people out there like, look at the other bids, but that part has been selected, and the one that is in front of us is the one for us to decide.
right, but that doesn't mean that we can't put another RFP out to have the process
Correct,
go over again.
correct.
So, I would just like some healthy discussion with this, I think. I'm not 100% a yes on this at this point, and it's basically because I did do my homework and I am concerned that this may not be the right property for this type of investment.
Other counselors? Counselor Wilkinson, then Counselor Buddington.
I was prepared to vote on this tonight because to me, it's a no-brainer, but I can understand where some of the newer counselors might have questions and concerns about the process. And so if it decides to go to committee, I'm not opposed to that because I don't think it's really slowing anything down. But I was ready to vote on this tonight. But committee might be good.
Counselor Buddington.
May, through the chair, to Councillor Cohen, just ask for clarification. If you're concerned that the city would have to invest a significant amount of money under this proposal, I wasn't quite clear what your concern was regarding.
No, I'm more concerned that the proposers is going to look at how much they're really going to have to put into this after the $253,000 and say, I don't know if this is the right investment for me at this point. I don't think that there's been enough investigation into the property and to, the logistics of having such an expansive structure in that area to really say that this is going to be 100% a sale at this point.
Oh, I see, the certainty of the sale.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So may I
Sure,
respond?
absolutely.
No, I would say that any proposal, there is not 100% certainty. So what we are proposing is, again, the most advantageous use based on the bids received. So again, that's within the framework of the procurement law, and it falls to the developer to do their due diligence once they're able to do that going forward.
Other counselors? Counselor Moran.
I think if it goes to committee or to have healthy discussion is fine, but, what we just heard is we spent $50,000 last year on this building to keep it from falling apart. I think this is been sitting there for a while. I think we purchased it in maybe 2008.
500,000.
For 500,000, thank you. And this is, I think, kind of something that let the folks that are purchasing it for their amount and what their plan is going to be, to let it play out through planning and zoning, just because I think the sooner we relieve ourselves of this property, the sooner that we're out from, I mean, and this is a historic building, so it's not just patch it up and it'll be okay. There's certain guidelines that have to be met. Now, whether or not the Square Office LLC will be able to go along with their total build out, I think that can be hashed out at planning and zoning. But to really relieve this property from the city, I think the sooner the better, just because it is, I just think at any one point, I mean, we lost gutters and it wasn't a big deal. And then all of a sudden it became $50,000 because gutters were stolen. And that's just money that we're constantly putting in, and we're not really seeing any bids come in for $500,000, what we paid for it. So it just kind of seems like maybe this isn't a bad time to let this process start and see how it shakes out, because the sooner the better, I think we remove these properties from the city.
Councilor Lamb?
I think Councilor Moran makes a good point. This is like the first step in a longer process, too. With a lot of these projects, especially of a scale of this type, there's so much work that has to happen, but they can't start that work until they've secured a building to start the planning, start the design. No one's going to invest $250,000, $300,000 in a design plan if they don't have a building secured. And I think that's when you look at any of these plans, I'm guessing none of them would start that actual design work and planning until they've actually got a building that they kind of have their thumb on. They say, okay, we control the space, now we can actually plan accordingly. The other thing I would say, and again, I'm going to refer to Council Moran's note, is, we did spend nearly $50,000 on this last year. We spent quite a bit more than that the first time when we did secure work on that building. That was pre my time, but a while back, which locked it into that historic finance piece that means it has to be kept up. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it in that respect. But the one nice thing of it going into the process of going into private hands is that it puts it back on the tax rolls immediately in that sense, once they actually have it in hand. And just because they're only paying $253,000 for it does not mean that the assessed value suddenly drops to $253,000. It still maintains assessed value at what it's been assessed at. So those are just a couple thoughts that came up.
Yes, Councilor Buddington.
I just want to throw out and that I've had a moment to think that I agree that there are risks, but it gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling that they're not the city's risks. And I think it's wonderful that somebody's willing to take this on and try it. I think it's a solid project. The price for the property is certainly, it's the best offer we got. It seems reasonable, all things considered. And if it doesn't work out, I'm okay with we'll come back to this in a couple years and try again.
Councilor Cohen.
I just have to maintain my thoughts that I'm not comfortable with changing this area forever with this structure. It's a residential area, and this will forever change that part of that street. And I took a walk up there today, and I was looking, around the area, and it feels, even with the parking that's going to be needed in that area, that structures are going to have to be taken down as well. I just don't foresee this as being the land for this. This is a great idea, and I want to see this in North Adams. It's just, for me, this is not where this structure needs to be.
Mayor, I know one thing, I was recently asking how the Windsor Mill property was going, and I think one thing you said that would be different with these RFPs is that, or the negotiation, is that you'd be putting on an expiration date, because, we're saying immediate, but the Windsor Mill has not been immediate. I mean, things can go on, and even today we are just starting by approving, we are starting the negotiation process. What's the expiration date if that's going on, that you plan on something with these, do you know?
We haven't set that. I would imagine, given what's in the proposal and the time frame that they're talking about, it would be in the order of a year as the absolute outside.
So, because it is a big project, so there could clearly be a lot of studying and looking at the building before they make a final decision too. Councilor Harpen?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good proposal. It seems like a solid proposal. I do have some concerns about the traffic being near school. I'm not sure how that could all be worked out, but I'm sure there might be some, something that can be done about the traffic. And I'm just also concerned about, I know there's been a lot of hotels built in North Adams and in Williamstown, so I'm wondering about the viability of all these hotels. I hope that you're right in your market research that we need all these hotels. That'd be fabulous. So, I do have some concerns. I did notice on their letter to Mr. Novelli that they said they would like to close as soon as possible upon satisfaction of results of due diligence. So, I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind sending this to a committee and maybe us newer counselors feeling a little bit more comfortable with it.
Councilor Wilkinson?
Yes, through the chair to the mayor, in your preliminary discussions with the buyers, have they mentioned financing at all? Just curious as to whether they had financing in place, or they will, after they secure the property, will seek financing, which is for a 60-unit hotel is, as we see, millions and millions of dollars.
I can't speak to their financing plan. I know that I believe the proposal references someone who is their finance partner on that. So, but I can't speak.
I was just wondering in your conversations whether they said, "Oh yeah, don't worry, we got the cash." That wasn't mentioned.
No.
Councilor Buddington, and then Councilor LaForest.
A while back, Councilor Lamb spearheaded an effort to look into Airbnb issues in the Northern Berkshires, and part of that discussion involved reports from local hotel owners. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the general understanding was that we run out of beds when there are big festivals in town, and it's hard to fill them during the off-season. So I think that's at least a starting point. I don't speak for market analysis, certainly. And I have no objection this going to committee. I think that would be fine.
Councilor LaForest and Councilor Wilkinson.
So I continue to have, significant reservations about an otherwise very exciting proposal. And one of my points of concern is that the Square Office LLC was incorporated with the Secretary of State's office on the 10th of August, with the proposals due to the mayor's office on August 13th. So I guess my primary consideration is, I guess I would share with Councilor Cohen, or Councilor Wilkinson, I apologize.
One and the same.
I'm sorry?
We look alike.
You
was a
do,
joke,
yeah, it's very similar. Well, it was the seltzer, the spritz of the seltzer that threw me off. So,
I'll wave to her. She's much better.
Okay. So I guess my concern that I share with Councilor Wilkinson is whether, in the course of, I presume, a good deal of thought and planning went into incorporating with the Secretary of State's office and submitting this between the 10th and the 13th to the mayor's office. I remain very concerned about that. However, I understand, having had an opportunity to, review the proposal and review the process in the last day since we received these, that, there is a process that will have to be cleared. Multiple hurdles will have to be cleared prior to the closing of the sale. So I do agree that this needs to, something needs to happen here, and that, these buildings do need to be preserved, and hopefully, the process will
generate the sufficient funds and generate a plan that works logistically for the city and also preserves these buildings. We've already lost one steeple in the Steeple City, and it would be a shame to watch, another one of these buildings fall into disrepair and ultimately need to be taken down. And, I have seen there's one church I go to Montreal frequently, there's one church in Montreal that, the facade was kept and they built a school building, a college building in between the outside walls of the church. And it's a very exciting project. I do know that we need hotels here. And so, I don't know what the other counselors are feeling, but given the length of process between now and the close of sale, I would be willing to vote on this tonight.
All right. I'm going to go to, did you have your hand up too? All right. We got half a council here. I'm going to go Cohen, Hopkins, Lamb, Moran.
What happened to me?
Counselor
I'm
Wilkinson
sorry.
was after.
What's that?
Counselor Wilkinson was supposed to be after Counselor.
Oh, I'm
Forrest.
sorry. Counselor Wilkinson first. Counselor
Thank you.
Wilkinson first.
Thank you. It's easy to forget. Anyways, there's a lot of speculation going on in town. I'm in a business that speculates on real estate. And all of a sudden, I hear a lot of people saying, well, there's a lot of hotels that are being speculated in North Adams. How are we going to fill all these hotels? There's, 4 or 5, maybe 6 different projects that are projecting hotel space. And everybody goes, this is North Adams. Why do we need all these hotels? Well, people from outside of the area speculate on other things that we consider here in town. There's a whole lot of speculation on whether Tom's Kern's going to be able to pull off the model train museum. And if it does, for some reason, they think that North Adams is going to rocket through the universe. I happen to be one of those people that also think that. So, as I say, I on a day-to-day basis, not every day, but certainly get phone calls when people are saying, speculating, okay, for one reason, we want you to evaluate this, we want you to evaluate that, we want you to evaluate this. And the bottom line is, North Adams is cooking right now, and all these people are coming into town with an idea of making money. And they're speculating. Whether any of these get built or not, it's speculating. But they're putting in the foundations, they're putting in the framework, they're doing what they're doing on bidding on things like this because they're speculating. If we have an opportunity to make some money while they're speculating, by all means, let's do it.
Thank you. All right. Cohen, Hopkins, Lamb, Moran.
So 2 things, just to kind of piggyback on that, I do think we also have to remember that we do need low-density market rent housing as well. And that's important to me because it maintains the integrity of this city. But just a quick question to the mayor through the chair. So I see there is a timeline here, and it says that the closing would be on or by July 18th of 2019. So when exactly would the city receive the monies if there was the closing on that date?
So that's a term in the proposal. That's
Okay.
that's not a fixed date. That's the date that the proposer suggested.
So those aren't hard dates?
That's not a hard date. That
Thank
is
you.
based on preference of what it would take to do that due diligence. So we would put that into the contract. And then again, if we look at the Cumberland Farms project as a model, they are going to site plan approval and then to closing. So potentially there, but again, that will be something we will determine in the negotiation of the purchase and sale.
Right, so, in retrospect, I also think of the Phototech Mills in Williamstown, and it was held up for a very long time and didn't end up going through. So you had this space that was there, they were not collecting anything on it, it was a liability to the city, and then now it is still sitting there. So those are my concerns on this, and if we don't have those hard dates set. So I do feel like this should go to committee. I think, especially as new councilors, need much more discussion in order to make a vote on this tonight. But it is it's a great proposal. I mean, I'd love to see this.
Councilor Hopkins, Lamb, Moran, then LaForest.
I understand there are questions and some concerns about this, but this is 20-plus years of planning board experience talking. We have a very strong planning and site plan review process in this city that will address all of the concerns that I've heard tonight. And I'm not quite sure what sending it to one of our committees would accomplish besides setting it back a month.
Fair enough.
Lamb,
Fair enough.
Bona.
Counselor Lamb.
So just two things, and actually, Councilor LaForest raised a concern that I actually had prior around the incorporation piece and how the timelines of that seem so close. And so I was asking around to a few folks over the last 24 hours, and that's actually a fairly common practice, which I think is odd. But that's just me as a layman in that respect. Like I'm not. That's not a world that I live in. But usually within a fairly close proximity to a major purchase, you see a lot of these things happen, especially as they're coming together around a project, because it adds a protective element for the members of an LLC to have that instead of it being an individual making the proposal. It gives them that buffer of a kind of a not a middleman, but a joint entity. So that was just one thing that I found before tonight. And the only other thing I want to bring up is, are they allowed to speak to us, like, especially the ones that are here with their RFP?
When they, right now, we're still in council discussion, so.
No, I just wasn't sure, like, some of the questions that I know that we're asking, I can go through the mayor, but I wasn't sure if, there's.
If we get to audience discussion and they wish to talk.
Okay.
They're welcome to.
Okay.
They are here.
Thank you.
That it for your?
Yeah, that was just he brought up a good point that I wanted to.
Councilor Moran.
I'd add that, if this was a sale price of, $1 or $2, and they had a goal of, I think it says $18.5 million is total, it would seem like pie in the sky. But this is a real sale price of $253,000. And to echo what Councilor Wilkinson said, is that we can possibly make some money on this property, but it also assures me that the two other RFPs that we were able to review came in at substantially lower, but I don't want to say they would be fallbacks, but to agree with Councilor Hopkins is let this kind of play out. Let this, if you have a reservation regarding the fact that it's a hotel, fine. But to have all these speculations on how we think they'll be able to come up with this, the fact that they've been an LLC, only for a few days, et cetera, that'll shake out. But we also have two other RFPs that probably won't go away because their buying price was $125,000. So I think if it's held up for a year and there's a possibility of $253,000, great. If we don't get that, another RFP goes out, and we start this process again. And I would agree that if it goes to committee, we're going to ask questions that aren't really going to be able to be answered until the mayor can enter into some sort of agreement to actually speak upon these things. So I think these are all really valid, but at the same time, I guess it's, the train has to leave the station, and maybe hopefully that's tonight.
Okay. LaForest and Wilkinson.
So a fairly unrelated but related question. So theoretically, this wouldn't close for a year. Are the buildings structurally sound? Are they going to require an investment of the city over the course of the year to, maintain the structure, roof, prevent water damage? Similar to, the blowout on the south side of the church proper previously. Do we have a sense of?
I don't have the current engineer's report.
Okay, that's fair.
with me, but I also haven't heard from from the engineer or the building inspector that there are any particular concerns over there.
Thank you.
Councilor Wilkinson.
Yes, I mentioned before that I was willing to send this to council. I'm going to change my mind. After listening to Councilor Hopkins, him and I spent some time on a planning board together, and we have to have the faith in the planning board. And we have in the past, and it's always worked out well. So at this point, I think we have the information necessary to vote on this tonight. And if it were to go to council, I'd vote. If it was to go to committee, I would vote against it. Because as I say, let's have faith in the boards that need to do the job, and the planning board and the zoning board will regulate this without any trouble. The amount of money that somebody is paying for this is beyond anything we've seen in years, and to take a chance on squandering this would just be nuts. Pardon me.
I'd just like to say, beyond the boards, the community will have plenty of opportunity.
They will.
At those meetings, the neighborhood residents will have plenty of opportunity to express their concerns.
They will.
And that's for those boards to listen. If there's not anyone else from the council, possibly we might get some answers. I don't know, but
Could I
yes,
just
go
say
ahead.
one thing before you open up to the floor? And I want to kind of speak to the concern that Councilor Cohen put forward. And when I mentioned that this was a difficult process, or this was the most challenging of the RFPs, I want to say a little bit more about that, which is the committee really did wrestle with this one for the reasons that you are citing, talking about, you know, mixed-use housing or housing versus hotel, neighborhood character. And in fact, we put this decision aside for 24 hours. We set it aside, we all cleared our heads, we came back, and with the benefit of that time and that reflection and that clarity, we really believe that this was the most advantageous proposal. So we did due diligence, and it was not just me, it was all four of us. We looked around and said, we can't get to this, and then when we came back with a unanimous decision.
Okay. So I am going to ask the audience if there's anyone out there that would like to speak. Yes, Mr. Smith.
Okay, my name is Robert Smith. I live at 140 Pleasant Street. And this proposal is really going to affect my neighborhood because I'm only a block away from this site. I like the idea, first of all, of getting an additional hotel space in the city, because we need to have people come in to visit our city, whether it be for mass mocha or anything else, to encourage them to stay more than 1 or 2 nights. This way we increase our tax income, and that's a plus for me. But I do have some concerns about this, and one, what was brought up by Council Lady Cohen, and that is, first of all, the parking situation in that area. There's several concerns regarding school children when the school year starts, will be very soon, who are walked down to school by their parents in that area. With additional traffic as it is now, it's a very busy area, traffic-wise, for a residential street. Now that's going to increase the traffic flow, and then we may need to have some crosswalks up in that area, additional crosswalks, for concerns for the children going to school. The other issue I'm having is what happens during the winter months when the snow starts coming? We might have problems with that as well if you have additional traffic in that area. Whether or not they can clear it up in time for the morning rush going to work, the morning rush coming home from work, and the safety of the residents who need to get out and about. So I'm in favor of doing it, but I do have one more concern, and that was brought up by Councilperson Wilkinson, and that is these people have said they would be able to raise $18.5 million.
Smith, you got to wrap it up.
Okay.
You're at your 2 minutes.
But we have to be careful. What if they don't raise this money?
Okay.
What happens then? Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yes, Mr. Sapienza. Name
Thank
and
you,
address
Brian.
for the record.
Yes, Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street. I'm a resident, being in Pleasant Street, I'm in the shadow of the Notre Dame Church, and 30 years ago I remember Friday nights would be impossible to park on Pleasant Street because the then Notre Dame Church had the bingo. I think it's a great proposal. We have a chance to get this building, which is essentially a liability that's crumbling before us, and turn it into an asset for the city. I'd like to see it off the city books, and once these people purchase this hotel, we'll be seeing the tax revenue coming into the city on the assessed value of the property, and I think that's very important for the city. As far as the hotel, yes, I'm sure it'll increase traffic, but right now the Pleasant Street is a main route between Vermont and Point South. We see a lot of traffic. We see a lot of traffic that is traveling too fast for the city. I would hope that any proposals in the planning board from here on out, once the RFP is accepted and things move forward, that the traffic considerations are taken care of. We see a little bit more enforcement from the North Adams Police Department regarding the traffic issues up there. I know that you can't control the volume because it is a public street. But other than that, I think it's a great proposal. It will change the character of the neighborhood a little bit, but maybe the character of the neighborhood needs to be brought up, and having the hotel in the neighborhood might improve our property values in that area. So I'm for the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? You sure? Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Emily Donis, and I live on 81 Cherry Street. So I want to, first of all, thank the council very much for considering the proposal that I put forth under the Square Office LLC. I understand it was a recent LLC, but we do that as a development business to sort of protect the individuals involved. Sure. This is a serious bid. I live up on Cherry Street. Mr. Smith, thank you for noticing the neighborhood. I walk my children by Notre Dame every day for school. So to me, you know, seeing the building in disrepair, seeing what happened to St. Francis has just been a true sort of travesty for the city. And I just have been looking at it and really trying to think of something that could really bring some vibrancy to the neighborhood and also support the buildings. They are big buildings. They need a business in them that will keep them running and maintain the steeple. So I just want to thank you for considering the proposal we put forward. And I want to say, especially to Councilman Hopkins and Wilkinson, this proposal, of course, needs the guidance of the building committee and all the other, you know, issues that will come up with putting a business like this in this parcel of land. But I certainly look to do the due diligence to make it feasible for the neighborhood, for my neighbors, for my neighborhood, for my kids who walk by it to school in the winter. And for the traffic and the parking that it would ensue. But I hope you'll consider our bid as an honest proposed bid. We look forward to gaining the financing to move this project forward as swiftly as possible, which will help the whole project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the audience who would like to speak? Councilor Wilkinson.
Could you just remind me what's the motion on the floor?
The motion right now is to adopt the order, which is to accept, basically allowing the mayor to move into negotiation with the amount of $253,000. So there's nothing right now to go to committee.
Right.
It's just to allow the negotiations to start under that amount. We have a motion. We have a second. Any final discussion? Not hearing any. This is a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
No.
Harpin,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Forrest,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Moran,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Bona.
Yes.
We have 8 yeas, motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations. The process begins. Paper number 11,683-1B, Mayor's Communication number 59, regarding the sale of the City of North Adams salt shed. Without objection, we will file the communication and move to the order for discussion. Paper number 11,683-1B, an order authorizing the mayor to negotiate the sale of the City of North Adams salt shed to B&B Micro Manufacturing Incorporated in the amount of $75,000. Motion to adopt the order.
Motion to adopt?
Harpin?
Second.
And Cohen or Buddington, you get to pick. All right. And discussion. Yes, Councilor Lamb.
I'm just going to note that I'm abstaining from this based on prior business with them in the last year.
Sure. You have an abstention from Councilor Lamb. Any other councilors? Councilor Wilkinson.
Yeah, well, This has come before the council before. I believe it was 2 years before, so some of the present councilors weren't here. The bid at that time was $50,000, and I came out violently opposed to this because I thought that the property was worth a heck of a lot more than that. If you look at a dollar per square foot basis, it's worth a heck of a lot more than that. I've always had the idea that this would be a good place to put a public service building. And since the city has not, even if we were to get money for a public service building, have a place to put it, I always thought that this would be a good reserve place if we could. I've reevaluated how I think about this. I don't think that's now a good place for a public service building because of the train trestles. I think the fire trucks would probably have some issues getting in and out of there on a regular basis.
Excuse me, Mr. Wilson, public service or public safety?
Public safety.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. I was going to say, we got a big one.
All right. Got a big one what?
We just got one.
Public service.
Oh, yes, we did.
We don't want to buy another
A
one.
place for the fire trucks and the police cars.
Yes, thank you.
So I've changed my mind on this. I look at this from an appraiser's point of view as we call what is the highest and best use of a property. It's been on an RFP forever. The bid we have now is the highest. It seems to be for a company that is kind of found their way in North Adams and could probably use a break. I'm sure the planning board or the zoning board will make sure that because they're storing buildings down there, there will be a way of making sure that they don't look too unsightly while they're sitting there. So my original idea was to vote against this, and I talked to a bunch of people, and they've changed my mind. I think it's worth a lot more than $75,000, but I don't see anybody coming across and writing a check. So the time has come to turn it back into a commercially paid tax base. And as much as I was opposed to it before, I'm on board now.
Thank you. Any other counselors? Counselor Cohen?
I agree with Counselor Wilkinson with everything he said, plus he knew a little bit more from being a counselor previously. But, I mean, I've researched this company. I've gone down to your site now, and you're doing fantastic. You're spilling out into, I mean, you're overloaded back there, so it seems as though you're growing, and it's exciting. You're a home-based company that I feel that we could be proud of. So I'm very excited to vote yes on this and to get this off the city lap and start having great relationships with you there. So this is great.
Thank you. Other Counselor LaForest?
No reservations, but just a question about the site. Are there any concerns for contaminants that would need to be remediated prior to the sale, and would the city be responsible for those costs?
That'd be part of the negotiation.
If I could just add?
Counselor Wilkinson and Counselor Buddington.
If there was bank financing involved, they'd want a 21E, and they wouldn't give the financing unless it was a cleared site, so the whole thing would fall apart.
Okay.
Counselor Buddington.
I'd like to direct two questions through the chair to the mayor. I should know this, but I didn't look up. What is the assessed value? And secondly, has there been any environmental testing yet since the city's use of that site?
No to the second question. Let me try that one more time. $114,900.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so if you want a back of the envelope on the taxes at the current rate, that's about $4,600.
Other counselors? Not hearing from other counselors. Anyone from the audience wish to speak on this? Yes, Mr. Smith.
Robert Smith, I reside at 140 Pleasant Street. I have to say this is a good deal. We can get rid of another property that the city has on its hands and get some money for it, and then work with the tax revenue. I agree with some of the council people here that, it will bring in tax revenue, and it's a good thing that the city won't be responsible for this area once again. I'm also interested in the fact that the business that will purchase this property is a growing business, and it's something that would attract people who come into our city to spend money. And if they're located down there near the center of the city, they'll spend more money and we'll get more tax revenue. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? Yes, Mr. Sapienza.
Yes, Brian Sapienza, 113 Pleasant Street. I'm all for the proposal by B&B Micro Manufacturing. I think it's a good idea. It will, in addition to reflect what Mr. Smith said about getting it off the city liability and making an asset for the city where we're collecting a tax revenue off of it. Not to mention, one thing that wasn't mentioned prior is the fact that if they grow and they expand, it'll mean more jobs for the city of North Adams, and I'm definitely for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Any other counselors? Yes, Counselor Buddington?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I feel one of the strengths of this application is just that this is a manufacturing business, and North Adams has been doing very well on art and tourism recently, and I feel having a diversity in the economy is really good for hedging our bets in the future. So I'm glad to have a business that is manufacturing physical, practical objects. I think that's a good thing to have.
Agreed.
Other counselors? I think what makes this one interesting is that it's actually a spin-off from our other RFP when we sold the Windsor Mill. Because the Windsor Mill sold is why they must move out, and so it's just funny how one RFP is affecting another RFP. Any other counselors? Not hearing any, this is a roll call vote.
Buddington,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
LaForest,
Yes.
Lamb,
Abstain.
oh, I'm sorry, Moran,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Bona,
Yes.
have 8 yeas.
We have 8 yeas, motion passes. Paper number 11,698, Mayor's Communication number 60, requesting a transfer from parking meter reserve account to public safety account. Without objection, we'll file the communication and move to the order of discussion. Not as exciting.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Have the paper.
I'm sorry.
We don't have the paper
Yes,
yet.
that's true.
Let's have a paper.
There we go. Paper number 11,698, in order appropriating the sum of $44,044.31 from the parking meter reserve account to public safety account, public police expenses, miscellaneous purchase. Motion to adopt the order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Did you get those? All right. Counselors? Yes, Counselor Lamb.
Just because this is something that doesn't come up super regular, but it is something that we address I don't even know if it's annually, but semi-annually. This is a fairly common practice because our meter reserve funds do tend to be used for vehicles in this way, specifically for public safety. And I did also just want to note that I did appreciate the extra due diligence on the research end in terms of our at least seeking out if there's options in terms of better fuel efficiency vehicles. And it's interesting to hear that that's something that may be down the road. So, thank you.
Counselor Harpen.
So yeah, I have the understanding this is like a regular schedule for the police vehicles. How often are we able to buy a vehicle?
So since, I want to say 2014, they've been done at about one a year.
Okay.
So this is the kind of annual cycle that this has been done on. And we do have a robust balance in that parking meter reserve, so it does become a good, healthy revolving fund to do this from.
Counselor LaForest and Counselor Cohen.
So is this replacing a vehicle, or is this purchasing through the chair? Replacing a vehicle, or are we adding a vehicle to the fleet? And what happens to the, if we're replacing the vehicle, what happens to that vehicle and those, that revenue?
May I ask the director to come up to speak
Certainly,
to the process?
Yeah. Sorry.
You willing to?
Yes. Speaking to the mic, please, for the people at home. Thank you.
Mike speaking to the mic.
You're welcome, Mike.
If you're not near the mic, they can't hear you.
Yes, at this time, I've got one police car that is down and going to the scrapyard.
Okay.
I've got a second car that is ready. It's still working. It's just a spare car that I'm anticipating will be done with it by the end of this year. So we'll be down 2 marked cruisers by the end of this year. That's what I'm anticipating. So it does replace, is what it does. It replaces, it does not add.
And so,
Can you get Councilor?
through the chair, just a follow-up question. So this is something we do need to do now for a safety concern for the city?
Absolutely, yeah, because if we kick this can down the road, we'll be coming to you next year for 2 cars, and my maintenance budget will be climbing because we're going to be sinking so much money into keeping these cars on the road.
Thank you.
Councilor Cohen?
For all the Chevy fans out there, is there a reason why we go with Ford? I never said I was a Chevy fan, just to be clear. But I see that, we're only looking at Fords for hybrids, so I just didn't know if there was a reason why we specifically go for the Ford model. I'm sorry, I didn't.
I'll let you speak to this if I say something incorrect, but this has become the standard vehicle over the past several years, so it's kind of keeping consistent. And then the question about the green vehicle or the hybrid is because it's like for like when that comes onto the state contract, and that's the one that would be there.
I mean, yes, essentially, yes. We have gone through the gamut of cruisers, throughout the years. We've had Dodges, we've had Chevys, and we've had Fords. The Fords seem to hold up the best. Not to advocate for any manufacturer, but they do stand by the vehicles. The state bid right now is through MHQ, which deals primarily in Ford. You can see it statewide. I would say probably 90% of the police cars in the state are Fords, and they hold up. It works well. They maintain uniformity within the fleet. Maintenance-wise, equipment-wise, everything is the same. There's no change. Officers rotate from vehicle to vehicle. I would just want to be sure that if they get into car 21, 2, 3, or 4,
Consistency, right.
they operate the same way.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, the director, while you're there, I just sorry. I just wanted to ask the director, just so people are familiar, currently how many vehicles do we rotate, and typically how much mileage is put on those vehicles per year?
Right now, the oldest our cruisers are set up in front line. We have a front line fleet. We have a backup 2. We always have 2 spare cars that are service ready and ready to go at any time. And then we have the old cars that are just we use them as needed. Detective may use one, and things like that. The average mileage on a cruiser is, on the odometer, about 50,000 miles a year on the odometer. We would expect 30 to 40% more in idle time to occur. And they're pushed to the limit. Our all-wheel drive cars have been very beneficial to us in the wintertime to navigate some of our streets. But, as you can imagine, the average cruiser has 5 to 6 drivers a week operating these cars, varying conditions, varying methods of operation. These cars are worked real hard. So within about, the car that this will replace will be 2.5 years old. The car still runs pretty well, but it's tired. So this will become a spare, and the oldest spare will become, it trickles down.
Mm-hmm.
It just trickles down is what it does.
Thank you.
And just to address, we did research the hybrids. The only hybrid Interceptor is made by Ford. It's been tested the last 3 years by the California Highway Patrol and the Michigan State Police, and it's going to be available on the state contract starting next fiscal year.
Thank you. Any other counselors? Anyone from the audience? Back there? Nope. Hold on, Mr. Smith. I'm going to make you go second this time.
Henry Esky, 62 Chase Ave. My question is, when you say service, I go down through to come down on to the farmer's market. I've seen cruisers down on T&M. Is the city for service, they're doing service on oil changes, brakes? What are they doing? Are they billing the city for T&M, or are we sending them the bill, or how does that work on the cruisers?
All right. Well, see if they respond once we're done with questions. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. I think it's a great idea. Anything that will benefit the residents of the city, and in this case, law enforcement safety, to protect the residents of the city, I think we should go for it.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to the service question at all?
Yeah, so it's a standard maintenance relationship that we have, so that they're the provider that maintains the city fleet, or the public safety.
So everything from oil changes to transmission changes. Yeah, thank you. Any other counselors? Anyone from the audience? Not hearing any more. This is a roll call vote.
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Harpin?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
LaForest?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Wilkinson?
Yes.
Bona?
Yes.
And 9 yeas, motion carries.
Motion carries. Paper number 11,699, Mayor's Communication number 61 regarding North Adams Recovery Month. Without objection, we'll file the communication and hear from the mayor.
Sure. So this has been a program that has been observed in the city over the past several years, heavily supported by the past administration, and I'm pleased to continue that support. I want to acknowledge the work of the Northern Berkshire Community Coalition as one of the lead agencies in organizing Recovery Month every September. In your packets, you received information about the September 22nd Voices for Recovery Rally, Walk, and Vigil, which is the centerpiece of the event and highlights the work that's being done. So that will take place, as in the past, at Colgrove Park and involve a brief standout down at City Hall as part of the program. I would like to introduce at this point a proclamation and invite Wendy Penner from the coalition to come up and receive it, if I may.
Yes.
It's kind of like The Price is Right. Wendy, I'll give you the copy and I'll read off of that. So thank you. This is a proclamation designating September 2018 as North Adams Recovery Month. Whereas the residents of North Adams value their physical and mental health as well as that of their families, and whereas the misuse of prescription and illegal drugs is fueling a national epidemic of addiction, and whereas more people now die each year from accidental drug overdose than in auto accidents, and whereas an estimated 88,000 people die from alcohol-related causes annually, and whereas evidence indicates that 17% of those who use alcohol prior to the age of 13 will later develop an addiction, and whereas the diseases of addiction and substance misuse recognize no economic, educational, generational, or social boundaries, and whereas leaders at the state, national, and local levels stand united in acknowledging the negative effects of prescription and illegal drugs on human capital, municipal budgets, and the health and well-being of individuals, families, and communities, and whereas the prospects for long-term recovery from addiction increase when there is strong and positive community support for those living with the diseases of addiction and substance misuse, and whereas a coalition of city residents, first responders, educators, faith leaders, and human service professionals has for several years joined forces to raise awareness and support recovery, and whereas designating a recovery month in the city of North Adams is a fitting way to increase public awareness of substance use disorder, offer supportive resources for those currently living with addiction as well as for their families, provide a program of healing and remembrance for those who have lost a loved one physically or emotionally due to a drug-related incident, and celebrate the recovery of local residents. Now therefore I, Thomas W. Bernard, Mayor of the City of North Adams, do hereby proclaim September 2018 as Recovery Month in the City of North Adams. So present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
so much.
Thank you for the work that you did.
Is it okay to say something really briefly?
Absolutely.
I just want to acknowledge Deborah Brown on our
work group, who's also here. Thank you. And I want to thank Mayor Bernard and the City of North Adams for the incredible support over the years for the community-based work taking place to raise awareness about substance misuse, about prevention, and also to advocate for treatment, harm reduction, and recovery support services. And the theme of Celebrate Recovery for this year's Recovery Month program is especially exciting because we've had a real groundswell of interest in creating a recovery community center here in North Adams. And that's something that we'll be talking about and learning more about at the Recovery Month event. But basically, we want to make recovery visible in North Adams. We do have many people who are living successfully in recovery. It's really important that people who are struggling know that, and that providing, giving and receiving peer support can be a really important part of recovery. So we're excited about the efforts that are happening to bring that, to make recovery more available to community members here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Paper number 11,700, Mayor's Communication number 62, recommending the appointment of William Archer to the North Adams Local Historic District Committee to replace Emily Schiavone.
Close enough.
All right. I should know her name too. She's gonna holler at me for that. All right. Motion to confirm the appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Discussion for the public. Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Does she watch these meetings? Does she watch these
We
meetings?
don't get this channel at home.
I'm safe. Paper number 11,701, Mayor's Communication number 63, recommending the appointment of Richard Levine to the North Adams Housing Authority to replace the unexpired term of Michelle Martinez for a term to expire March 25th, 2019. A motion to confirm the appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion from the council? Public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to actually thank, I believe, Mr. Levine and William, they're both here. So thank you for coming. Flipping my pages here. All right, paper number 11,702, Mayor's Communication number 64, recommending the appointment of Rachel Smith to the Human Service Commission for a term to expire May 1st, 2019. Motion to confirm the appointment.
Mr. President, before you move, I have to offer two corrections to this, two amendments to this communication. The first is it's actually Human Services on a February 1st cycle. That was an error on my part. And this particular appointment does fill out an unexpired term, and for Jennifer Bernard.
So it's still 2019, though,
Still
right?
2019, the expiration just being February 1st.
All right, so do I need a motion to accept those amendments? Yes, all right.
Move
So
to
I need a
amend.
motion to accept the amendments the mayor just mentioned.
So
Motion
moved.
to accept.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor of
Aye.
accepting
Aye.
the
Aye.
motion, or the amendments? And now,
Aye.
all in favor of, did I mess something up?
We just jumped the gun.
Oh, all
Not
right.
your fault.
All in favor of confirming the appointment?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Paper number 11, I was doing really good till I screwed up your wife's name. Paper number 11,703, Mayor's Communication number 65, in response to Council Paper 11,696 regarding crosswalks at intersection of Bradley and Church Street. I'm not sure what the plan is at this point. We have a motion to...
So moved.
It's a communication, so...
So confused.
I guess we'll let the mayor speak and we'll figure that out.
Okay. So this is a communication at the request of the council at the last meeting that we come back with some additional information on this. And it's in the communication, but I'll speak to it in terms of process and action to date. I think that the place to begin is that this started in late 2015 and was brought forward by Councilor LaForest at the last meeting because of a important safety consideration and a concern that was raised by the folks who initially requested it about the safety in that neighborhood and at the Church and Bradley Street intersection. That said, this is not a cut and dried issue. I think we have to just begin with a basic statement of principle, which is what a crosswalk means is that in the opinion of the city, that is a safe place to cross, and there are reasons to question whether that is true. And that's not just a city decision, that's based on recommendations and design standards from MassDOT. So the administrative officer and the director of public services did a quick assessment, a preliminary assessment, and that the intersection is just over the stopping sight distance threshold that MassDOT recommends. If you look at that crosswalk, there's a review, just a review of ADA standards indicates that there would need to be a curb ramp on the north side of Church Street to accommodate accessibility coming down Bradley. And then because of the traffic patterns there, it would be advisable to consider additional warning measures. So those are active measures such as flashing crosswalk lights. So all of that suggests that an engineering study might be needed to determine what is needed at that location. Those considerations aside, the other point of process that I just want to bring forward, because there was some question about this at the last meeting, is that in looking at the council actions from the past several years, this was never brought from Traffic Commission to the council for action. So there has been no order to install that crosswalk. So the research or the investigation that was done, but there was no council action taken. So based on that, my recommendation is that this be brought back to the Traffic Commission for review, to look at some of the issues that I just surfaced, and then brought forward to the council for its appropriate action.
Discussion from the council. Councilor LaForest.
So through the chair, does the Traffic Commission typically review all of these factors prior to making a decision to install a crosswalk at any given point?
I can't speak to, again, I can't speak to how the Traffic Commission addressed this particular issue in late 2015.
I don't want to be argumentative, but they did address it, and they recommended that a crosswalk be placed there at the intersection of Church Street and Bradley for a variety of reasons, and there had been one at some point in the past, although apparently not legally. There is a curb cut on one side of the street, but not the other. So I guess I guess I need to ask a point of clarification. Does it really need to go back to the Traffic Commission to decide again whether or not a crosswalk should be placed, or should the City Council here? I'm happy to.
Councilor Moran, then Councilor Wilkinson.
I agree with Councilor Forrest, and I guess I wonder that we don't meet the minimum site distances and ADA compliance. So is it possible, because the Traffic Commission's recommendation was a crosswalk here, so what is the next step that the city can take to go ahead and permit the crosswalk? Because though we don't meet the minimum site distances, and it seems that you say we just miss it, it still seems more dangerous to not have a crosswalk. So I feel like going back to the Traffic Commission, they're going to say, yes, there used to be one here. Yes, ADA has to probably be installed on the Bradley Street side. They can't fix the site distance issue without it actually being designed. So how would we move into that process? Because going back, it seems like we're going to be into this spring, and you have another school year of kids crossing, the street. without
I'm gonna let Councilor Wilkinson speak. I did speak with the Traffic Commission Director, so I can also say
I've
what she
talked to
told
her
me.
also,
but
yes.
Councilor Wilkinson.
Actually, my question was answered. Thank you.
Okay. So our chair, the Traffic Commission Chair, Mrs. King, she during that meeting, at the time, Mayor Alkenbright was present, and all the members, I think, if not most of the members, including Paul Markland from Public Works, was present, and they supported the crosswalk going in. However, it was never a recommendation that came to council. Mayor Alkenbright said he agreed, and it would get done at the time, and it just hasn't. So my feeling is if it goes back to Traffic Commission, what we can request is a formal recommendation to come back to us. Now, the other question I have is typically the council will not only approve the installing of new crosswalks, but we have to approve the removal of crosswalks. So if we actually never approved the removal of a crosswalk, then, and there was one there, then should it have been removed in the first place? So I think there's a couple things that could be looked. So my recommendation would be to let the Traffic Commission, even if it's the same vote, bring back a formal recommendation to the City Council. They can look also at, previous, if there was an actual ordinance there. Then when it comes back, often the recommendations to Traffic Commission go to Public Safety. So that's how they've usually have worked in the past, and Public Safety looks at their recommendation, and at that point we can look back in history and see, should that crosswalk never left in the first place. So go ahead, Councilor Lifton.
So I guess my question is, my understanding is that the Traffic Commission already voted on this. Why did it never make it to council?
Because at the time, Mayor Alkenbright was present and gave the impression that it would just happen. So the recommendation never formally came to council.
So I understand that. So the recommendation is floating out there somewhere, but the language in the ordinance says that it comes to council. So is it still floating out there? How do we get it on the agenda? It seems ridiculous to send it back to the Traffic Commission to be re-voted on when it was already voted on.
Sorry, go ahead. Councilor Wilkinson and Councilor Lamb.
Just a question. As I understood it, it was recommended, and Mayor Alkenbright said it'll happen. And then there came a question as to the safety issue afterwards as to whether they wanted to implement it or not. So it never happened. So since the safety aspect of it was never resolved, it went into limbo. So I don't know where that goes, but I believe that's what happened, is that it went into limbo because we approved something, or they approved something, but then they found out it was unsafe.
But the language, so not to argue, sorry.
Well, we got Councilor Lamb, then
sorry.
We'll make our cycle here.
So I will address that piece, and then I have a couple other points I want to note, is that, yes, it should have come to us, period. It did not. That's the reality of the situation. This council is at least 50% different than when that occurred, if not more. So we're in a totally different administration, we're in a totally different council. So from my perspective, that would indicate a need for it to go back to traffic for a review before it comes back to us, because they may have changed as well. I don't actually know what their composition is. I think there's other questions to be asked there, being that it was 2015. I don't know if ADA has changed since 2015 in terms of sightlines and things like that as well. If that could also be an impacting factor. So sightlines, things like that type, there hasn't been any development in that chunk of the city, so the physical piece there hasn't changed, but the policies may have, and the rules. So that would be another question that may have to come up in going to traffic, or if it comes back for public safety. And another concern that, as this does ruminate some more and goes to whoever, is ultimately with a more active, engaging, flashing light or whatever that case might be, there's a budget that needs to be allocated for that too. Those don't come for free, and I know that there has been past challenges when it comes to different mechanisms of that type being installed. They never get installed because they can't decide who's paying for it. So we need to keep that in mind too as we're looking at this specific location. But my personal opinion is that because of all the change, yes, again, it should have come to us. It didn't, period. That's kind of where it is. You could say it's still out in limbo, but because the composition of the people making the decisions has changed so dramatically since 3 years ago, I think that it's our responsibility to send it back to them and then have it return in a due process sort of way.
I believe, go ahead, Councilor Harpen.
Yeah, I would definitely want to send it back to traffic. I think that's where it needs to go, unfortunately. I really want to see a crosswalk there for the children that are going to cross the street to meet the bus and their families and people that walk up to Windsor Lake. I know I walk up there because I'm close to that neighborhood, and there is a lot of traffic, and a crosswalk would be helpful. So I don't know what the restrictions are and what needs to be done there, but I hope that we can get it done timely because, you know, I'm just thinking of these neighbors with their children that they are concerned about crossing the street. And I think that we should respond to this in a quick manner.
Other councilors?
She said exactly what
Okay.
I was going to say.
One reason it may not have had to come back to us is because the crosswalk, my understanding, was there. And then it disappeared, maybe when the road was paved. So
But I think the original was never went through process, and that's why it was illegal, quote unquote.
Right, but what I'm saying is, well, we don't know how far back. I mean, there could have been a crosswalk there 50 years ago. So the crosswalk was removed, and it may have just been a case of, yes, we'll just paint it back because it was no longer there. And that would not have had to come back from the council. That would have just been the mayor at the time saying, yes, we will repaint that crosswalk. So, you know, we may find out. This will go back to it may go back to Traffic Commission, and we'll get clarification. Any other, Councilor Buddington and then Councilor Moran?
This is a question for anybody who might know. In our ordinances, we list every stop sign and its location in North Adams, but I don't see a list of crosswalks. Is there a list? I didn't think so.
We need a list.
Okay.
We need a list.
Any other councilors? Councilor Moran?
Could I just ask, through the chair to the mayor, that we send it back to traffic? I'm assuming it's going to come back with the same recommendation, put a crosswalk. Is there a way that we can possibly start the process of seeing what would it be for the ADA compliance, the potential need for supplemental measures to complement the crosswalk? If we can kind of move this forward in some sort of manner. Unfortunately, it seems that in 2015, people were promised it would be back, waited extremely long time before becoming impatient. So, yes, it doesn't meet what we need. So how can we move this forward to make this acceptable? Because I have a feeling that the traffic, if it goes in the way, would be they will again recommend a crosswalk, and again we will be in the same position of we need it designed by a registered engineer for the sight distances, et cetera. So if there's a way to possibly kind of parlay this together, so we're not waiting for traffic and then to us, and then to the administration, and then to next school year, I guess.
Okay. Any other counselors? We have someone in the audience who would like to speak on this. We'll start from the back.
David Whitney, 51 Burnham Street. Here you're talking about kids' safety, and you're worried about we gotta go to this committee, we gotta do this. Why not put a temporary ramp or a 4x4 or angler so across from the other side, and put crosswalks in so you can deal with the kids' safety and worry about all the quote legal aspects afterwards. When they had the hurricane in Vermont, they stopped, Vermont is very environmental, stopped all the the rules and let's get the job done. This has been going on for how many weeks, and school starts, I don't know if it started yet or not, but it's pretty close, and I would think the people that are concerned about this would like to have something done instead of, you know, fix the job and then do the legal stuff after. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Smith, then Mr. Canales.
Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. Part of what I was going to say had to have already been said by the gentleman just before me. But I have one thing, well, a couple of things. One is that I've been coming to these city council meetings for a few months now, and one of the things I find very annoying is that you keep on putting off things that are very important for the safety of people in our city. Now, if this was approved prior, we got to get this done really quickly. It involves the most precious people in our city, the children. And, you know, Councilperson Lamb is worried about budgets. But what about children? You know, you spend money on other things with the money that the city has, but this is money that should be spent on our precious people in the city, the children. The heck with the, you know, worrying about the budget on getting this done. And the mayor's talking about putting flashing lights up, but you could also do signs a few blocks beforehand to warn the drivers that it's a heavily area for children crossing and mothers crossing with strollers. So I would like the city council to stop playing games with this. Get it done.
Thank you. Mr. Canales?
Yes, I'd like to address the fact that when this came forward, there were serious issues raised about the safety of a crosswalk there. What you have to understand is there are minimum standards set for sight distances in order for a car to stop when it sees a person in a crosswalk. Just putting up a crosswalk does not magically put up walls that are going to protect somebody crossing a street. Therefore, you must always make sure that sight distances are there. We questioned whether or not the sight distance were adequate back in 2015. We went up there and looked at them again. It is very marginal. What we could be doing is telling people this is a safe place to cross when it is not, as far as the city determining it with a crosswalk. So if you cannot clearly meet the sight distances, then you need to bring in somebody, an engineer who's going to look at it and say, yes, this does meet the standards, and is not creating a situation where we are saying it is safe to cross here, and it's not. It's very dangerous for the city to ever make that determination if it's borderline. If it's clear, there's 500 feet of, then the city council, traffic, the rest can determine that a crosswalk should go there. But when you have something that's marginal, we have to be very, very careful. And crosswalks have been removed in the city based on when we've had federal funding and have engineering. Main Street is a perfect example that the federal government came in and said our crosswalks were too close together and were removed. I know that speaking to Tim Lascarbo, we know that there was work done in that area before, and it may have been that they may have removed that crosswalk because it did not have adequate sight distance. But we're not sure why it was removed, but we're guessing. So right now, we are not sure it's a safe place to cross, and that is why we need to look at maybe having it engineered instead of just deciding, because the people that are experienced, that know the regulations and have researched the DOT regulations, we are not confident, myself, Tim Lascarbo, we are not confident that it meets the minimum sight distance.
Okay, thank you. We got Councilor Cohen, Councilor LaForest, Councilor Lamb, and Councilor Harpen.
So we have a bus stop directly across from where this proposed crosswalk should be, and we are still assuming that these children should be crossing the street with or without a parent at this point. in that area. It's very well known from everybody in the city that that street into Church Street is a concern. It has been for years. There's been accidents. There's been near misses with people walking. There's a heavy traffic. So I do think we need to expedite this very quickly with school coming, because I am concerned of the safety of the people that live in the neighborhood on the opposite side of the street that are, we're requiring our children to cross the road to get their bus. And not all parents can always be there to hold their hand. And I'm not confident that people that are coming down Church Street are going to slow down during the school year. And so I hope if this has to go to committee again, that we can put a little bit of caution on this, that it needs to go quickly, and that this doesn't wait until the next school year, because we could be at a liability if a child gets hit or a pedestrian walking. So, I do have concerns with sending it to committee, but I think it's going to go. So, it's inevitable, but it's my concerns.
Councilor LaForest, then Lamb, then Harpen. You want to pass?
So, yeah, can I have a pass for just a second? I'm looking up something.
Councilor Lamb.
So I just wanted to address and clarify. I'm not saying that we should not put a sidewalk in there, and I'm not saying we shouldn't expedite it. What I'm saying is I want a crosswalk in a spot that's safe, because you talk about liability. If we don't have a crosswalk there, sure, there's a liability to it. If we put a crosswalk in and 6 kids get hit because we put a crosswalk there and that traffic lane is just not safe to have it there, that's on us, 100%. Now, if people just cross on the street, you're taking, to an extent, you're taking your life in your own hands when you just cross. That's why jaywalking is a thing, right? You shouldn't be crossing where there's not a crosswalk or a corner. That's, standard operating procedure when you're walking. I do not want this city to be putting a crosswalk in the street for our children to take, especially when there's no curb cut for people in a wheelchair. So if we have a student that's in a wheelchair and they're trying to get across that street as well, and they find that they can't get over the curb at the other side, that's also a major issue here. So these are reasons why I don't want us to jump the gun, so to say, and just plug a line on the street and say, good to go, because that is completely irresponsible. Yep. And that's why I am pushing back and saying that we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and touching on the points that Mike just mentioned. Because before we do anything, it needs to be engineered, all the safety needs to be in place, and it's clear the engineering did not happen before when it was brought up. At all. It was just left out in limbo, like you mentioned.
So I just want to echo, on the point that Councilor Lamb is making. I'm not suggesting we just throw paint down, but there is a failure of process here over many decades. There is a curb cut on one side of the road, but there is not on the other. There was a crosswalk, and then it disappeared. The Traffic Commission voted to recommend a crosswalk there, and there was a failure to follow the ordinances of the city. It goes to the city council. It doesn't go into limbo, and I don't want to start making accusations against...
Just for clarity, and the clerk's pointed out, and we may need to clear that, but their crosswalks do not need approval of the council. So
Section 13-21, I'll just read it. Crosswalks, traffic lanes, loading zones, bus stops, and taxi cab stands shall be authorized, designated, and established by the city council.
I thought so, but she passed me this.
Right. So I just, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying there has been a failure here. There's a recommendation by the Traffic Commission. There's a request by the taxpayers to have a crosswalk here, and I believe that we need to so I'll motion to send it back to the Traffic Commission with the understanding that if the Traffic Commission reapproves it, and I certainly hope they would, that we follow up on this appropriately and have an engineer, review this space, because there are safety concerns there, and I know this is not immediately pertinent, but we also have an issue with trucks going down Church Street and getting stuck under the overpass. So there are multiple issues there, but this is a bus stop, and we recognize that this is a dangerous spot, but we just let it go. We didn't do anything about the curb cut. We didn't do anything about the missing crosswalk. We didn't do anything about the bus stop. So it's time to address this appropriately. So I will motion that we send this to the Traffic Commission.
Councilor Harpen.
I'm all set.
All right.
Councilor LaForest.
Councilor
just
Buddington,
said
since you got your hand up anyway, at this point, I believe the Traffic Commission meets in mid-September. Do you know?
I have not seen a date for our next meeting.
All right, so,
I could ask for it to be hurried up,
Counselor Buddington is our liaison to the Traffic Commission, so.
but I wasn't on when this happened, just to dodge responsibility. I have a question as to if it seems clear that an engineering study, from what Mr. Canales was saying, is definitely necessary, just because the administration has stated tonight that it cannot say that there is sightline. So my question is, who orders that study? Can that happen now? Since we certainly need that opinion. Or does the Traffic Commission have to request that?
Good question. I see head shaking back there, so I'm not sure. Do you want to respond to
so
that?
I'll respond, and if I'm incorrect, I'll look at my good colleagues behind me to correct me. But the engineering study would need to come to council for appropriation based on, we have to get an estimate, and then that would have to be appropriated. Accurate.
We can get an estimate.
We can get an estimate.
Get an estimate and
Yeah,
determine whether or not
please.
we have to go for appropriation.
Counselor Lamb?
In terms of an expedited process, could that come to us for the next meeting?
Counselor LaForest or Counselor Harpen? His went up like a half a second sooner.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering about the engineering study, because I believe in the budget, I'm trying to remember, but I do remember that there was $30,000 allocated in the budget specifically for engineering. Is that something that we could use?
That's why we need to get an estimate, because if it's within that, yeah, if it ends up being greater than that, that's why we need to get the estimate.
Counselor LaForest?
So I guess through the chair, and I don't know if either Mr. Canales or the mayor will know the answer to this, but the curb cut has been on one side of the road now for God only knows how long. Has there been any consideration of how to address the suggestion of a crosswalk without the reality of a crosswalk? In terms of, well,
Wait,
Virtual crosswalk?
well, yeah, I guess, would have a field day with this, but
Let's build a tunnel. A tunnel would be the perfect
Yes,
idea.
Yeah. So I guess my concern is we allude to a crosswalk, but there's not a crosswalk, and yet we have the curb cut. So we sort of suggest people should go into the road, and then where do they go from there? So in the interim, how do we address the safety issue at that intersection?
I don't have an answer for that at the moment.
Okay.
Counselor Buddington, Lamb, Wilkinson.
This is quick. I want to make sure, I just wanted to clarify the process that is supposed to happen, that the council, as you stated, does approve crosswalks. We're required to get an opinion from the Traffic Commission, but we can ignore it if we want.
Counselor Lamb?
I don't even know if this would be a traffic question, or through the chair to the mayor or anybody over in that corner right now. In terms of the signage piece, I know we can't put up a stop sign without a really thorough vetting process, but is there a capacity to put a slow down, slow down is not the right word, but like children's zone, like those signs that you use for it's not school zone necessarily, but something in the vein for right now, right? So just to try to get people to slow down, to be a little bit more knowledgeable of what they're doing. I don't know if that's something that has to go through a significant review, or if some form of signage could go up.
I mean, we can look at possible signage over there. The other thing is that the school committee, you can have the bus stop on both sides, and then when the bus stops with its flashing lights, alerting everybody, that's when people could cross for that. I will point out that if you look at many communities, I like when people start throwing around jaywalking. There really is no such thing. I had a person come to my office and say, we need to start enforcing jaywalking, and I said, boy, that would have been difficult to do up in Clarksburg when I was up there. And he said, what do you mean? I said, there's no crosswalks in Clarksburg, so how do you ever cross a road for a bus stop or anything else? Crosswalks are put in places to make them safe. But as far as putting some signage or having it communicated that the bus stop is on both sides of the street, so kids coming down and kids coming over can be. One thing we have to remember is, and maybe this should be the first step, is just getting an engineer up there to first look at just the sight distance, just a quick analysis of that. If you don't have the sight distance, you might never be able to put a crosswalk there to begin with. Now, the engineer can explore other options. such as reducing the speed limit through that area. You reduce the speed limit, you shorten the sight distances. So those are things. Then anytime you get into mechanical warning lights and everything else, there's no one here, council, myself, Tim Lascarbo, any of us that are qualified to make a determination of what passive or active systems would need to be done in order to make it safe. That's where the engineering comes in. But from what I'm hearing, I think the first step is just, and I don't think it would cost much at all, is to get an engineer up there to first do a quick look and verify, do we have the sight distance or don't we? And the only issue we have is coming from heading north, the northbound lane. The southbound lane, you have plenty of distance to see that. It's when you're coming up, I know the intersection, my brother lives on that hill, I know we've been pulling out, cars come up fast, and that's where we have to make sure that we're saying it's a safe place to cross. We need to cross all our T's, dot all our I's. But probably the first step is just getting that initial analysis. Do we even have adequate sight distance? Before it even goes to traffic or anything else, could probably be something we could pull together within a week. Get somebody up here and make that determination. Somebody that will put their engineering stamp and say, yes, this is a safe place to have this crossing, because we are concerned it's not.
So just a follow-up to that, through the chair. I know it could take it might only take a week to do that, but it could take a day to throw a sign on the ground. That's the reason I'm getting at that point, because school starts on, well, first thing next week.
Wednesday.
But just in terms of a slowing the traffic down piece,
We want Mike standing there the whole time.
Mike.
Counselor Lamb, your suggestion about putting some signage up, children in the area, dangerous intersection ahead, something along that line. There shouldn't be an issue with that. It would be a matter of just talking to Mr. Lascarbo, getting two signs, one for the northbound lane and one for the southbound lane, and setting them up at appropriate distances to that intersection as a temporary fix until we work through the logistics of the rest of it.
Thank you. I think that would be just a good thing to do kind of proactively for now.
Can we put a sign under that says, P.S., your truck is going to get stuck?
Kill two birds.
No, so...
Councilor LaForce.
I'm sorry. So in all seriousness, though, if the determination is that it's unsafe and not feasible to put a crosswalk there, please bear in mind there is the curb cut on one side of the road.
Another suggestion besides the sign is since, at least with the beginning of school starting, is we do have that speed limit thing, and maybe just putting that does make people slow down, even though they see it, and it just makes them aware of the speed they're going, and we have placed that all over the city, so I don't know if that's an option.
I was going to ask, okay.
It's there now.
Okay. Okay.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's out there. It was by Greylock School. We just got a request to move it to a West Main Street location.
Okay.
So we can move it to that Church Street area. The problem is obviously there's three things. We don't want to put it in the street. We don't want to block a sidewalk. And we would need someone's permission if we put it on their lawn for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. So we'd have to kind of find that location or check with MCLA to see if they'd let us set it up over there. We could put it there, yes, but right now it's going to a secondary location at another request. It's another hot spot in the city. So it's going to be there for a few weeks, and then we could certainly circle back around and find a place on Church Street. Yeah, I would have no problem bringing it there.
Councilor Cohen, Councilor Harpen.
I do like the idea too that because there's small children coming down from Bradley and across the street, that maybe we could explore talking to the buses as well as having those two stops, so that children do have the option of being on both sides of the street. I think that might help too.
Councilor Harpen.
Through the chair to the mayor, I'm just looking for a time frame, because Mr. Canales did say it would take 1 week for an engineer to get there and do whatever he needs to do. I believe we do have money in the budget for an engineer that should cover this. I'm thinking 30,000 should be enough money.
Well, that's not the only thing that we're using engineering money
Okay.
for, but
Okay.
so that's why we start with the easy piece, which is the sight distance piece, and then if that provides clarity to go forward, we go forward. If if the recommendation is those distances aren't there, then we would be looking at a different situation. But we can have that and report back at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So
Can I motion?
we have, yeah, well, right now, this is just a communication.
Counselor Wilkinson had a question too before.
Okay, Counselor Wilkinson.
Well, I don't know where the conversation went.
It's all about you.
Wonderful. It's all about me. Easy. I was just thinking everything that was mentioned here was very expensive and very time-consuming. And school's going to start soon. Why can't we put a crossing guard up there during times when it's heavily used? Minimal expense solves the problem.
It's a school budget, isn't it?
That I don't know. You know, I would say there
It's
is
just a
there is an
just a
expense.
suggestion.
There is an expense. Counselor.
Well, there is an expense, but a flashing light in an engineering study and rebuilding the sidewalk is very expensive and very time-consuming. It's not certainly going to get done by the time school starts in a week. But you could have somebody up there in a week. I don't know what crossing guards get paid. I'm sure not a whole lot. That would solve the problem immediately until something else could happen. Just a suggestion.
Counselor LaForest, I thought I saw 2 hands over here. Was there any? None? Did I make it up?
I just didn't, I was going to say, I didn't know if the crossing guard would come out of the school budget, so that just,
Question for the superintendent.
yeah, that opens up a whole, but we did have a discussion when you were gone. I just want to say that we did talked about signs.
Oh, okay.
Possibly being put up temporarily.
Nobody-
And changing the bus stop so it's on both sides of the road temporarily until there is a better solution. So I wanted to update you.
All right. Anyone in the audience? Did we already do that? We probably already did that. Yeah, okay. We don't need to go around
Yeah,
again.
so my hand was up.
I'm sorry.
A point of information, what's next? Do we what do we do with this communication? Do we need to,
That's
Send
where
it.
I was going.
I know, and we lost track of that, so what?
So, it is a communication. I mean,
I see no reason. Oh.
go ahead, Counselor Buddington.
I see no reason we can't refer a communication to Traffic Commission. The issue is clear. The action we're asking from the Traffic Commission is also clear. I think it's fine to do this, even though it's
Right.
a communication.
So we refer it to Traffic Commission to come back with a report. That would be,
Can I motion now?
you want to make the motion?
Can I motion that we refer this to the Traffic Commission? Should we refer it also to the mayor's office, since they will be procuring an estimate, or? Sure. So, okay, so I'll motion that we refer this to both the Traffic Commission and the mayor's office.
Okay.
I will second that
Have
motion.
a second? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What? Do we have a date for it to come? Well, the Traffic Commission meets in mid-September, at least from what I believe.
They may be able to meet earlier.
Next meeting from the mayor's office, and I don't know, the second meeting in September from Traffic Commission.
Yep, we can always postpone if we don't, but let's hope
Okay.
we don't have to. So, second meeting in September. Sorry, all in favor again?
Aye.
Oppose? Communication or referral passes? Okay. Committee reports or minutes from committees? None. Community calendar events? Anyone from the audience on community calendar events? Not hearing any. Open forum. Anyone wish to speak in open forum? Yes, Mr. Smith.
Okay, Robert Smith, 140 Pleasant Street. Just getting back briefly to this thing with the crosswalk. I don't think it should be a case of either or, reduce speed signs or a crosswalk. I think it should be both in each direction. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else for open forum? Not hearing any other. Mayor's concerns.
Well, everybody I was going to congratulate on on being able to move forward with their bid proposals has left the room.
We bored them with a crosswalk.
We bored them with the crosswalk.
Yes.
So, but I would offer just congratulations to both B&B Micro Manufacturing and the Square Office, and look forward to taking this to the next step with them. Continuing to beat a dead horse on this issue. I want to shift the crosswalk conversation briefly to the west end of town and just make a plea to everyone who is part of the process of adjusting to a new business on West Main Street to recognize that there is a crosswalk in front of the new Brouhaha location. What that has turned into the times I've been over there is a stand there tentatively while people drive by and then look chagrined walk. So that'll change over time. The other issue over there is that there is a very clear no parking to corner before Richview on the westbound side of West Main Street, and I've heard numerous amounts of feedback from people. I know the folks at Brouhaha have, I know the police have, about that, because as people park ahead of that sign, the visibility coming out of Richview is a concern. What we have done to the issues that we've talked about here is we've replaced the earlier no parking to corner sign with a new sign just to freshen it up to hopefully reinforce that. But that'll adjust over time. A couple other issues. First and foremost, a reminder to everyone that the state primary election is Tuesday, September 4th. That's somewhat unusual, falling on the Tuesday after a long holiday weekend. The clerk's office will be open until 1 o'clock on Friday to accept absentee ballots, and the polls will be open from 7 to 8. Is that correct?
Yes.
On Tuesday the 4th. All polling locations are at St. Elizabeth. If you missed this information, it will go out in an all-call at the end of the week. And one side of the Mohawk Marquee will also encourage people to vote beginning in the next couple days. I want to thank the folks who were at the zoning meeting last Tuesday. It was a good chance to review the zoning process that has developed up to this point, to see the proposed updates. The zoning committee that we have going in City Hall has met to review that, and the next step is going to be to refer that to Planning Board and Council for their review. We talked a couple times about the fact that the school year starts next week. Tuesday, September 4th is the first day of school for K through 8th graders and new students at Drury, and then on Wednesday, all North Adams Public School students start their academic year. BART began last week. McCann begins on Thursday, September 6th, and I, in my school committee chair role, want to wish good luck to all students and faculty this year, and especially to our youngest and newest students who are just starting at our elementary schools. I had a chance to do walkthroughs of most of the schools this morning, and everybody's getting brushed and polished, and those floors are gleaming, and
Not for long.
cups of new pencils everywhere, and I know there's going to be excitement as the students begin the year. Also want to offer a welcome to new MCLA students and families who are moving in this weekend. If everything goes according to plan, the Spectrum letter will go out at the end of the week. We're literally dotting I's and crossing T's at this point. And also on the subject of cable, I don't know if anyone else has received this, but I know I have received the latest in cable phone scams on my answering machine at home, which asks you to call about discounted cable cost and gives you a return phone number and a reference code. Based on a little homework I did, there are some versions of this that'll offer you that deal if you prepay using a prepaid debit card. So clearly a scam, so I would encourage people to not engage callers who offer that deal. And if you receive the message, to not call back, even if you're looking at the bite of your monthly cable bill, because this will bite back hard as well. And the last thing is just to encourage anyone who isn't to get on the do not call registry. It's not a perfect solution to this issue, but it does help to lower the volume, at least until the scammers find their next innovation. Thank you.
Liaison updates or counselors' concerns. The only one I have here is the city clerk's office will be closed on election day for good reason.
I forgot to say this during community events. Sorry. Down Street Art is this Thursday.
Down Street Art? Okay.
Head on downtown. They're doing the Grand Marshal selection and a fashion show of dogs for the parade. So if you are a canine-friendly person, I suggest coming on out.
Councilor Moran, do you know, is the bike Thursday night things, are those still going?
Yes, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock Thursday, bike ride. Anyone else for counselors? Not hearing any. We don't have any licenses. I don't believe we have any correspondence. We have a motion to adjourn in order.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.